There is a moment in your life when the outer noise becomes too loud, and yet something inside whispers, there is another way to live, a way that feels natural, grounded, guided, like you are finally walking in the direction your life has always wanted to go. In the ancient teachings of Thoth, known as the voice of truth, the guide of inner understanding, there is a simple and direct path to hear the voice of your higher soul, a voice that has always been inside you, waiting for you to become quiet enough, honest enough, and open enough to listen. Today, you will learn this step by step in a clear and practical way, so you can begin receiving insights that feel real, deep, and unmistakably yours. Write in the comments, "I am ready to hear my higher soul." Many people believe that guidance must come from outside, from someone who knows more, from a book, a teacher, or a method that promises results. But Thoth teaches something completely different. The most important teacher you will ever have is already inside you. This inner teacher does not shout, it does not force, it does not argue. It speaks in the quiet moments, in the soft pull of intuition, in the subtle feeling of, "This is right for me." The problem is not that your higher soul does not speak to you. The problem is that your mind has been trained to hear only what is loud, urgent, and external. So the first step on this path is learning to notice what is already happening inside you, but has been ignored for years. When your attention is always outside, your inner world becomes distant. You may feel overwhelmed, lost, uncertain, or disconnected from your own direction. But when you learn to switch your attention inward, not in a forced way, but with calm presence, the higher soul begins to speak with clarity. Think of it like tuning a radio. The signal is always there, but you need to adjust the frequency. And the frequency of the higher soul is silence, honesty, and presence. Not perfection, not power, not control, only presence. The first practice is simple. Once a day, sit in silence for 1 minute. Not to meditate, not to achieve something, just to listen. 1 minute seems small, but what matters is not the length, it is the sincerity of the listening. In that 1 minute, you are saying to your soul, "I want to hear you." This intention opens a doorway that has been closed by years of distraction. Many people say they do not know how to listen. But listening is not something you do, it is something you allow. When the mind becomes quiet, even for a moment, the voice of the higher soul begins to rise from underneath. Now understand this clearly. The higher soul does not speak in sentences. It speaks in feelings, images, inner knowings, gentle directions, so do not expect a loud voice or a dramatic sign. Instead, you will feel something like a soft pull toward what feels true, warm, aligned. It is subtle, but it is unmistakable once you learn to recognize it. Think of it like remembering something you already knew but had forgotten. You are not learning something new, you are remembering who you already are. But there is something deeper here. To hear the higher soul, you must be willing to pause before reacting. Most people act from habit, impulse, emotion, or fear. They do not give space for the soul to speak. So the next step of the path is learning to slow down your reactions. Before you choose, say, or decide anything important, take one breath, one single breath, and in that breath ask inside, what feels true for me? Not what feels easy, not what feels familiar, but what feels true. This one breath opens a door that changes everything. With time, you will begin to notice something powerful. Your higher soul has been guiding you your entire life in the moments you listened, in the moments you ignored, and even in the moments you didn't understand. Every time you felt something was off, every time you felt drawn to something meaningful, every time you felt a quiet inner yes, that was the voice of your higher soul. You have already heard it, you just did not know that was what it was. And the more you listen to this inner voice, the more your life begins to align. Not instantly, not dramatically, but naturally. Things that are not right for you begin to fall away. Things that are meant for you begin to feel closer. Your path becomes simpler. Your choices become clearer, and your inner state becomes calmer. This is not about becoming someone new. This is about returning to the person you were before the world told you who to be. Your higher soul is not something far away, high above, or separate from you. It is the deepest and most real part of you, the part that knows why you are here, the part that remembers your purpose, the part that never forgets your truth. And when you learn to listen to it, life stops feeling like struggle and starts feeling like direction, not perfect, but meaningful, guided, alive. And this is where the true step-by-step begins, not externally, but inside your own awareness. So take one breath now. Feel your chest, feel your presence, feel the quiet space inside your mind, and ask gently, what is the next step for me? The answer may not come in words, but it is already rising. There is a moment when the inner voice begins to move differently inside you. It no longer feels distant. It begins to feel like a presence that stands right behind your thoughts, not overpowering them, but guiding them with a softness that has weight. To deepen this connection, you must learn something very simple. Your higher soul does not speak with doubt. Doubt is the voice of conditioning, of old patterns, of memories inherited from the world around you. The voice of the soul feels like calm certainty, even when you don't know the outcome. It feels like this is right, even if I cannot explain why. And when you begin to follow this feeling, you will notice that the path ahead becomes clearer, not because you can see far, but because the step right in front of you becomes undeniable. This is how Thoth teaches one to walk. Not by planning the whole journey, but by mastering the next step. To go deeper, you must understand that the higher soul communicates through the body as much as through the mind. Many people try to hear their inner guidance only by thinking, but thought alone is a surface-level instrument. The body, however, is ancient. It carries memory, instinct, sensitivity, and intuition that existed long before rational language. When something is not aligned with your soul, your body reacts. The breath shortens, the chest tightens, the stomach contracts, the shoulders rise in tension. And when something is aligned, the breathing softens, the chest opens, the body relaxes without effort. So the second step is to use your body as a compass. When facing any choice, ask, does my body feel open or closed? This question is simple, yet it holds the power to redirect your entire life path. But understanding is not enough. There must be willingness, the willingness to trust your inner signals, even when they do not match what others expect of you. This is where most people step away from their inner truth, not because they cannot hear it, but because they fear what it asks them to become. Your higher soul will never push you into chaos. It guides you toward alignment, integrity, clarity, and authenticity. Yet alignment often means releasing something that no longer fits who you are becoming. And this release is where transformation begins. Thoth teaches that every time you choose truth over familiarity, the soul grows stronger. Every moment you act from intuition rather than fear, the inner voice becomes clearer. You are not building the voice, you are removing the layers that once covered it. One of the most powerful ways to deepen this ability is to practice speaking to yourself with kindness. The higher soul does not use harsh words. It does not criticize, blame, or shame. That voice of inner pressure and self-judgment is learned. It is not your true nature. When you notice that voice, pause. Place your hand gently on your chest and speak inwardly with tenderness. I am here, and I am listening. This simple phrase shifts your inner state into presence. And presence is the doorway through which the higher soul enters your awareness. You cannot hear subtle truth in a mind full of tension. But when you soften, the truth rises naturally, not forced, not searched for, but revealed. Now understand this clearly. Insights do not always come when you are looking for them. They come when you are open. They come while walking, showering, washing dishes, looking at the sky, resting the mind. If you try to force insight, the mind becomes tight and narrow, and the soul's voice cannot pass through. So instead of chasing the answer, create the space for the answer to arrive. Thoth teaches that clarity is not gained by effort, but by openness. Not by thinking harder, but by releasing the tension that keeps you from seeing what is already in front of you. And here is the paradox that changes everything. Your higher soul has already been guiding you, not toward what is comfortable, but toward what is real. Every time you felt an unexplained pull, every time a decision didn't make sense logically, but felt true, every time your heart leaned in a direction your mind didn't understand, that was the voice of your higher soul. You have already been hearing it. The true shift is to trust it consistently, instead of occasionally. To trust it consistently, you must practice a new habit. When you feel a subtle inner yes, follow it gently, even if no one else understands. When you feel a subtle inner no, step back, even if others expect otherwise. This is not rebellion. This is alignment. The soul does not shout, it whispers. The world shouts, it crowds, it demands. But the soul guides, it invites, it opens. And once you begin to choose guidance over noise, the path of your life begins to unfold with clarity that feels natural, not forced. But there is a deeper layer still. Listening to the higher soul is not about receiving information. It is about returning to your true identity. You are not a mind floating in confusion. You are not a personality formed by the world. You are consciousness, awareness, presence. The soul is not something you access. It is what you are when everything else becomes quiet. When the layers of noise soften, your true nature rises like a memory you always had, but forgot how to touch. So now, imagine that inside your chest there is a quiet room. A room where the mind is gentle, the breath is calm, and the body is at ease. Imagine that in this room sits a presence made of clarity and warmth. This presence has always known you. It has loved you through every moment, every mistake, every heartbreak, every confusion. It has guided you, protected you, and waited for the moment you would turn inward and recognize it. Sit with this presence, not as an idea, but as a real inner experience. The more time you spend here, the more natural it becomes. And soon, you won't be asking how to hear your soul, because you will be living from it. But we continue deeper still. Because now that the connection is opening, the next question becomes, how do you walk your life guided by this voice, even when the world around you moves differently? The answer begins to form. It is already rising. It is already taking shape inside you now. Feel it. It is there. There comes a point on this path where the guidance of the higher soul is no longer something you try to reach, but something you begin to recognize. Most people feel the truth for a moment and then abandon it because the mind interrupts with questions, caution, or unfamiliarity. The mind is not the enemy. It simply needs to learn its rightful place. The mind organizes, interprets, and gives shape to experience. But the direction comes from the higher soul, not the mind. So allow the feeling to rest before the mind begins its analysis. Feel it like warm light expanding in your chest. Do not rush it. Do not interrupt it. This is the beginning of co-expression with life, rather than reaction to it. At this point, you may notice something else changing, your relationship with time. When guided by the mind, time feels like pressure, always rushing, chasing, fearing loss. But when guided by the higher soul, time becomes spacious. You begin to understand that nothing important can be forced, and nothing meant for you can be lost. This removes the anxiety that once controlled your choices. Instead of acting from urgency, you act from clarity. Actions become precise. Words become fewer but deeper. You no longer move quickly, you move correctly. This is not slowness, it is exactness. And exactness is how the higher soul shapes reality with minimal effort and maximal impact. Another transformation occurs in how you relate to silence. Earlier in your journey, silence may have felt empty or uncomfortable, as if something was missing. But now, silence becomes nourishment. Silence becomes the place where your awareness rests, where insight rises, where inner presence becomes stronger than external noise. The more comfortable you become with silence, the more clearly you can distinguish the voice of the higher soul from the voice of inherited patterns. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of truth. Thoth teaches that silence is the original language of the soul. And when you learn to listen to it, every moment becomes a message. As this deep connection stabilizes, your emotional world begins to shift too. Feelings that once overwhelmed you now move through you with less resistance. You no longer fear emotions because you no longer mistake them for identity. You allow sadness, joy, confusion, clarity, all to pass through like weather. You observe instead of becoming absorbed. This creates a sense of emotional freedom that feels like breathing for the first time. Your inner state is no longer determined by circumstances. You realize your inner peace is not fragile. It is not something you have to protect. It is something that naturally expands when you stop fighting yourself. Now the question becomes, how do you live your daily life from this space? The answer is simple, though not always easy. You begin to act only from alignment, not from people-pleasing, not from habit, not from fear of consequence, but from what feels quietly and deeply right. This may mean making choices that surprise others. It may mean changing direction. It may mean stepping into a version of yourself you have always sensed but rarely expressed. But these changes do not feel dramatic. They feel like returning, like remembering, like coming home to your true center of being. This is where life begins to flow from authenticity rather than performance. The fourth step is to create sacred space for listening. Even 5 minutes, even 2, even 1. Consistency is more powerful than duration. Sit, breathe. Do not try to silence the mind. Just watch it. The mind quiets itself when it is not being forced. Presence is not something you do. It is what remains when you stop doing. When the mind slows, the soul speaks, not in words, but in knowing. A knowing that is soft, but unmistakable. A knowing that feels like remembering something you always knew. The fifth step is trust. Not blind trust, not naive trust, but the trust that arises when you recognize a voice inside that is wiser than your fears. This is where many hesitate. They feel the truth, but they do not follow it. They hear the guidance, but they remain in the familiar. But the higher soul does not guide you toward safety. It guides you toward wholeness. And wholeness requires movement. When you follow the truth once, even in a small way, the voice grows clearer. The path unfolds. Your life begins reshaping itself from the inside out. The final step is integration. Insight means nothing if your actions do not reflect it. Transformation is not in the realization. It is in the embodiment. Speak differently. Choose differently. Respond differently. If you heard the guidance but did not act on it, you did not listen. Listening is not hearing. Listening is alignment. And when alignment begins, reality reorganizes itself around you, not because you forced change, but because you allowed truth to lead.